Hi everybody, Katie Noland with Mosaic World Travel here. Happy Thursday! It is video day here for me and I am excited to bring you another video. I hope you enjoy watching me ramble on at length about various things that pique my interest and I hope are of interest to you as well. Today I want to talk a little bit about air travel. And for those of you who know me, those of you who read my blog, you know that I think that air travel is horrible. For someone who plans trips, who helps you leave the country and get away and see these amazing places, I am also the kind of person who, if I could just teleport to those places, I would be much, much happier. Airline delays, long flights, lines at the airport, all of that make air travel just a pain, honestly. And so anything I, as your travel consultant, can do to help you start and end your trip on a high note instead of on a frustrated note, I want to do. So if you are a subscriber to my newsletter, or if you check out my blog, you have seen that I recently posted a list of some ways to make those long haul flights a little more bearable. You can check that out on my blog, mosaicworldtravel.com/blog. If you want to check out those tips. Today, I'm bringing you something a little bit different, which is ways to help you speed through all of the various lines that you encounter at the airport. And specifically, I'm going to talk about 3 different programs that you can apply to be a part of. You've probably heard of at least 2 of them, TSA PreCheck and Global Entry. But I'm going to give you some details about what they're all about so you can decide if they're right for you. And then the 3rd program was new to me, and so maybe it'll be new to you too, and I can actually give you something that you don't know. So really quickly, I'm not going to ramble on, I promise. I'm going to start by talking about TSA PreCheck. TSA PreCheck is probably the most common of the programs. It is for domestic air travel. So if you're traveling within the United States and you are going through security and you want a way to sort of speed up that process, TSA PreCheck is really a great option for you. Basically, if you're not TSA PreCheck, you go through the standard security line, which is usually fairly long. You have to take off your shoes, your belt, you have to take your laptop out of your bag, you have to take liquids out of your bag. You go through the body imaging scanners at most airports where you have to like hold your hands above your head and they see everything. It slows the line down and it's very much a detailed process. So if you apply for and are accepted to be a part of the TSA PreCheck program, then you go to a different line, which is generally much shorter. And not only is that part of the line shorter, once you get past the sort of ID check that the TSA agent does, you go to sort of the conveyor belt where they're going to x-ray your bags, and you don't have to take your belt off, you don't have to take your shoes off, you don't have to take your liquids out, you don't have to take your laptop out, you don't have to do any of that. You just put your bag through the scanner, and generally, in my experience, I've only ever walked through a metal detector. I've never done the body scanner as a TSA PreCheck person. So it just speeds you straight through security and you just don't have to worry about all those annoying little details, which, let me say, I'm not ragging on TSA. I'm not going to rag on customs later. They're important functions. It's just for those of us who are law-abiding citizens, if there are ways for us to get around having to go through these detailed checks, it is very helpful and it decreases your level of frustration and annoyance at the airport, which is always a good thing. So basically, that is what the deal, I guess, with TSA PreCheck, or what you get as part of the TSA PreCheck program. It's not available in all airports. Some of the smaller airports, they just don't have the staff, or they don't have long security lines, so they don't need to really support it. There are probably other reasons why sometimes it's not available. One thing that I learned recently through my own travel error is that even at larger airports, like in my case, O'Hare in Chicago, I wasn't checking a bag. I already had my boarding pass, so I just kind of went to the first security line that I saw without really thinking a lot about it. Turns out, not every security checkpoint at O'Hare offers a TSA PreCheck line. So I ended up doing all of the regular folk stuff. I had to take my shoes off. I had to take my laptop out. I literally had everything on their list, and I was just pulling everything out. I was taking my coat off. I felt, I had like 4 bins full of stuff. The line was long. I felt like a first-time traveler, basically, because I was not prepared for that level of screening. So if you go to a larger airport, don't take for granted that the line that you're going to is going to have a TSA PreCheck line. Take a look. Make sure that you're in the right spot. I'm sure someone would have directed me to the right spot if I had been checking a bag or if I had checked in at the airport, but I was just going straight through. As far as signing up for TSA PreCheck, it's pretty simple. There's an application portion that you do online, and then once you've filled out that application portion, you have to set up an in-person interview, and you can go online. I'll put a link in the description here of a link to the different places, the different locations for those in-person interviews. For me, there are several nearby, and you just set up an appointment and you go. They do take your fingerprints. They ask you a few questions. For me, it was a very short appointment. The cost of TSA PreCheck is $85, but it lasts for 5 years. So to me, 100% worth it for sure. So that the drawback, I guess, of TSA PreCheck is that it only does you any good really within the US. There have been times that I've been traveling where a different country will recognize it to a certain extent and speed you through that process a little bit. I think it was in Lima maybe, or it might have been in Costa Rica, where they kind of were asking about TSA PreCheck, and they kind of shuffled you off to a different line where you didn't have to, take your shoes off or anything. But it's not something that's guaranteed by a long shot. I would say it's probably more the exception than the rule that even mattered to someone outside of the US. So if you're an international traveler, or you plan to travel internationally within the next 5 years, because global entry is good for 5 years, global entry is probably, I would say, a better deal, a better bet for you, because not only does it include all of the benefits of the TSA PreCheck program, which are pretty amazing in and of themselves, it also gives you benefits when it comes to customs. When you're re-entering the United States from another country, you are able to go through that customs process faster. There are different places, different lines for you to go through. It's just a faster process, much like the TSA PreCheck is a faster process to get through the security line. You do have a similar application process. You fill out an online application, and then you set up an appointment for your in-person portion of the application process. I do not have global entry right now, so I can't speak to exactly what that interview entails, but I'm sure it involves similar types of questions and customs types of questions that they ask you when you're going through, customs I'm sure they take your fingerprints. I'm sure they do a background check. All of those things would be a standard process, but I just don't know how long that appointment takes. I do know that the locations for your global entry appointments, there just aren't as many of them, at least near where I am. It's much more limited. Whereas I have a couple of local places I could go for a TSA pre-check interview, I would have to drive about 3 hours to get to my closest global entry interview location. So just keep that in mind if you are interested in applying for global entry. Just take a look and see where your closest spot is, because if you pay your fee, which is $100 for 5 years, and then you have to drive or you don't have time to go do that interview, then that would be a waste, and that would be too bad. So just kind of take a look. I'll put a link, like I said, in the description so you can see where your closest locations are. But if you can do it, for sure do it. You can schedule an appointment at an airport where you have a layover. You can you can do it as you're traveling to somewhere else. It just depends on when and where you're going and what your needs are. One thing to keep in mind, depending if you have certain travel credit cards, I know Chase has one of their Sapphire cards pays the cost of your global entry fee. So take a look at your benefits. It's usually for a card. I think the particular Chase card that offers that has a $450 annual fee. But then, if it's a couple and you take $200 off of that, you've paid a good bit on that card. And then obviously they have other benefits, which I'm not going to pretend to be able to delineate, but if you travel a lot, it's definitely something worth looking into, because you can rack up points, and I go on a lot of my trips using just my credit card points for my plane ticket portion. So it's something to look into if you use credit cards and if you travel. So I talked about TSA PreCheck, I talked about global entry, and here's the moment you've all been waiting for. I'm hoping I can surprise you with something you don't know, and that is called Mobile Passport. Is that something you've heard of? Let me know, because I want to know if I'm behind the times or not. I first learned about Mobile Passport when my family and I, we were returning from Costa Rica. We were at DFW and we were getting ready to go through customs, and I saw lines for Mobile Passport, and I didn't know what that was, and you can't really have your phone out while you're in the customs line. So I wasn't able to really look it up until later. But once I looked it up, I was like, this is kind of an amazing program that I feel like more people should know about. For starters, it's free, which you can't really beat that. All you have to do is download their app, the Mobile Passport app, and you scan your passport, you take a picture of yourself, and you answer the same basic questions that you would answer at the little customs kiosk. But you answer those on your phone, and you can do that like while you're waiting to get off the plane or whatever it might be, so that when you get to the customs area, you just walk straight through the Mobile Passport line up to the counter. There's no waiting to have a kiosk. There's no waiting for your turn, really. It's just a matter of walking straight up and passing through customs. Which is pretty awesome, because customs lines can be very, very long. And especially if you don't have global entry, but the caveat or the warning for you about Mobile Passport is that it is not available everywhere. There are about 20 something airports in the US where it is available, or they have this separate line, or you can use it. So take a look at that list before you travel and see if Mobile Passport would be worth it for your particular trip. Obviously that trip where I was going through DFW, it would have been amazing and my kids would not have had to cry and scream and be miserable while we waited through the customs line. But then my upcoming trip to Myanmar and Cambodia, on the way back, I'm flying through Detroit, which is not one of the airports that offers mobile passport right now. So it wouldn't do me any good there. One other thing that I don't think I mentioned, since I'm talking about traveling with kids, one thing to keep in mind is that with TSA PreCheck, I've never had an issue traveling with my kids and bringing them through the TSA PreCheck line, even though they haven't gone through that process. My husband and I both have PreCheck and they don't. And I've never been stopped or checked or anything like that. I'm not 100% sure if that's standard practice or if I'm getting away with something, but I'm just telling you my experience has been that it isn't an issue. However, I do know that with global entry, you're required to have applied and been approved for everyone in your group. So you can't just sneak your kids in because they're under 18 or something like that. They have to have been approved for global entry in order to use the global entry system and get those benefits. So just keep that in mind. If you travel with your family, it's a good idea to make sure you are getting the most benefits that you can from those services. You don't want to end up in the regular line, even though you have global entry, because your kid does not have global entry, is my point. For Mobile Passport, one person can download the app and add everyone in the group to that, to their app. And just like when you go to the kiosk, you put everyone you're traveling with in your family on one at one time. Same basic idea with the Mobile Passport. Not, your kids don't have to have a smartphone to be able to use it. Everybody goes into one app, so it makes it a little bit easier. So that is my video for this week. That's all I had to say. I hope that you've learned something or you've thought differently about something. Let me know in the comments if you had heard of Mobile Passport before, because I'm really interested. It was in December, so it was 7 months ago that I first heard about it. I'm not sure how long it's been around, but when we were at DFW, nobody was in that line, so it made me believe that no one had even heard of it yet. So maybe I'm giving you the inside scoop on a way to get through customs faster. I hope it's helpful. Anything I can do to make the air travel portion of my clients' trips better, I absolutely want to do, because that's the way you start and you end your trip. And it's also the part that I have the least control over as a travel consultant. And so anything that I know that I can do to help you out or encourage you to do to make that portion of your trip better, I absolutely am going to do it. I love to set up transfers so that once you get through the whole process, you don't then have to find and negotiate a taxi ride. You just have someone waiting there for you who's going to help you with your bags and who's going to take you straight to your hotel, and you don't have to worry about a thing. But yeah, not everybody wants that, but that's something, that's pretty standard for me. And, it's just one of the ways that I try to make the trip a little bit more enjoyable for you, even the parts that are, more challenging and more frustrating, like the air travel portion. So that's it for me today. I hope you have a great Thursday. I hope you have a great weekend ahead of you. And I will be back next Thursday. I have a few ideas for next week's video, but I would love if you shared your ideas, or if you have a particular topic that you're interested in and would like to hear me ramble on about, just let me know and I will be happy to oblige. Thanks a lot. Have a great day and happy travels.